I will. Well, Will, thank you so much for being here this morning and chat with me. For people that don't know me first, is I'm Rodrigo. I'm the marketing guy here at Endless Access, and I'm here with Will. Will, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm a principal engineer in the games team at Endless Access, and I'm working mostly at the moment on Threadbare, our community-built action adventure game.
Awesome, thank you. And because of that, you recently went to Godot Fest in Munich, Germany.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes. My colleague Sarah and I went to, and various other people from Endless Access went to Munich. Sarah and I gave a talk about the community-built games model and how we're using that how we're building Threadbare to integrate with that. So that was pretty fun. It was also great to see. It was a two-day conference, a really, really well organized conference, and a lot of very interesting talks there.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk about the presentation in a little bit, and actually, I'm gonna be attaching the link to that talk in the description. So for people to go and watch it. But probably, we can talk about a little bit of a summary of it. I think I just want to learn more because actually, from the initial conversations with Godot, with the organizers, is like Godot Con and Godot Fest are trying to kind of split and focus a lot more on like more professional, more like people in their industry who are there for Godot Fest. And that's a little bit where I want to kind of like get your gut feeling about it. You were there, you saw lots of people, vendors. What were your impressions about it?
In a way, I was expecting it to be more different. We went to Godot Con in Berlin this time last year, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some differences. Godot Con was much more based around, there were lots of stands of people exhibiting their games mainly. And Godot Fest had a like demo room, but it was much more informal. It was much more about the multiple tracks of talks and like hallway conversation. In terms of the attendees, it's a little hard to tell. I guess it probably skewed a little more professional, partly because it was during the week, and it was very well run. Not that the Godot Con wasn't well run last year either, but you know it was. Yeah, it felt a little different, but not as different as I was expecting. Actually, I mean, not that that's a bad thing. It was there were a lot of interesting people there. I think quite skewed towards people who are building games.
So did you see more people building games? Do you see also like anyone kind of like building plugins or any tools that complement nicely with the Godot ecosystem as well?
Yeah, well, there was a bit of both. There's I'm trying to remember the name of the game now. I'll go and look at the schedule, but there was a couple of very interesting talks. I only caught one of them from the team who are building Starfinder, which is like a AA, if that's the term, like full-scale RPG in Godot. And so they spoke a little bit about the talk I saw about that. They talked about both the workflows that they use so that they're quite big team working on the narrative of the game, can work with the level designers who can work with the artists without treading on each other's toes. But part of that was that they built their own dialogue system for Godot as a plugin for it. And they researched various off-the-shelf options, and they concluded actually they can just build their own. And they actually ended up using it in more places than they expected. They presented on how they use it for structuring, because in an RPG you have lots of branching narrative, and there are different outcomes you can get at different points. They have kind of dice roll nodes and stuff. It's a kind of visual graph of how the conversation can flow. And then they realized they could use the same tool to implement the logic for levels. Like if this button had been pressed, then this thing can be enabled. So it meant they had a common language between the level designers and the people working on the narrative for the game. So that was super interesting. But that was a good a taster of like, to build a pretty high production value, big team, big budget game in Godot seems to involve building tools of your own within the editor. Although I also learned that that's actually normal with other engines too. Like studios of all sizes are building their own tools around the engines they happen to use. So yeah, there was a bit of that. Most of the tooling that people talked about were tools that they had built in the service of making a game. There may have been other talks I didn't catch which were on other things, but that was the ones I saw were around that.
That's very cool. Actually, I mean, like, it makes sense. But if there's nothing, because I don't think right now there's a big market yet, or like a marketplace to go and download tons of plugins and apps as big as kind of like, I want to say like Unity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
but like that's a green field.
Yeah, although I think the Godot Foundation are working on a new, because there is an asset library that has a few thousand things in it, and they're mostly, so Endless we have 3 or 4 plugins and projects in there, but it's not a store, right? And then it's very functional, it's integrated into the engine, it works very nicely, but I think they imagine a much bigger ecosystem of having assets and so on all available in its replacement too. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of that.
Cool. So I guess probably going back to the one about the dialogue and the levels, is that something that, like, did that kind of spark any ideas for Threadbare, or it's just like, oh, that could be cool to be used in our game, or is it I don't know if it's too foreign from how we're building the game?
Yeah, I think it does too much for Threadbare. And in Threadbare, one of the things we're trying to do is to, if we have a choice, we're erring on the side of keeping the project simple, even if that means that it's less fancy as a game. If it makes it more approachable to people who don't have deep experience working in Godot in general and in our game in particular, then that's generally the right choice. So the dialogue system we use, we looked at a couple and we picked an add-on called Godot Dialogue Manager, and it's a much simpler system. You write plain text, it's kind of vaguely Python-like syntax, but it's mostly one line of dialogue. It's just a text file. So it's very low stakes is the wrong word, but it's pretty featureful, but it's not designed for incredibly complicated branching narratives with sort of graphs of data flow. There's no visualization for it, but it's worked very nicely for us. And I think it's probably the right decision for the project. But yeah, I mean, there were other talks where the things I learned were definitely like, oh yeah, we can definitely make use of this straight away. So there was a pair of talks next to each other. One talk about using Fmod, which is a third-party, pretty expensive plugin for doing like interactive music that reacts to gameplay events.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's and I'd recognize the name because loads of indie games have really good sound design use this. And so there was a great talk about why for one game that team is making, that was the tool that was best for them to use. But then right after it was a talk about what functionality Godot itself provides for interactive music. And that was really nice because we can't use a expensive tool for Threadbare because that limits who can contribute to the project.
Right.
But if we can do it with open source things, that's great. And there is actually some pretty fancy interactive music tools in Godot itself. And so, I saw that talk on Wednesday, and by Wednesday night, I'd fixed one of my pet bugs in the game so that when you finish a combat scene, the music smoothly changes to being a more relaxed piece of music from the really action-packed music for the battle scene. So that was great. That was I saw this talk, I took a photo of the slide, straight into the game. That was really, 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 really satisfying to suddenly learn, oh, this feature was there all along. So
that's pretty good.
There's a lot of stuff.
So that was F mode, and then there was also, you were talking about Paul Bittman's talk. It's about interactive music.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. I see.
Paul Bittman's talk. He's a sound designer, and he was showing, here are some of the sort of similar techniques, but how you can do what you can do based on what's just in Godot itself. You have to write a little bit of your own logic. That's always the way, but it was very nice. It was it solves the problem without too much custom logic and using quite accessible stuff that's right there in the engine.
That's cool. So the other topic I remember you wrote about, and I'm gonna share also as well the link to your blog post. It's about prototyping, and it sounds like, and I think probably in the background here for anyone who's gonna be watching is that before all this, Endless, this organization, there's an operating system, and you were heavily involved. So
Mhm.
the way that you work on an operating system is not the same way that you work on like software, a game as a
Yes,
software,
exactly.
right? So I would love to get your input there because it says
No,
like,
I mean,
I wish I
I mean,
had seen this 6 months ago.
yeah, I mean, definitely, it's a big adjustment because it's the stake. If you're building an operating system, the stakes are much higher, right?
Yeah.
If you introduce a bug that stops people from being able to update their computers, and that's pretty dire. But with a game, the stakes are a bit lower in that if the game breaks, okay, it's just a game and you can fix it. On the other hand, the stakes are higher in that you need to figure out quickly, is a game fun? Is an idea going to work or not? And so it's been a bit of a recalibration for me on like not trying to write low quality software, but prioritizing getting something that kind of works faster. And so yeah, there was this talk by Rene Haberman, who's from Bippen Bits, and he was sharing some kind of lessons they've learned on how to as a team build prototypes very quickly. They do a lot of game jam and they turn around a complete game in a few days, and then and some of them the idea lands, some of them it doesn't. And so he sort of also talked a bit about how they figure out, based on the reception that their game jam games receive, whether it's an idea which they should take forward or not. He also gave one very good example where they prototyped a game and they thought that actually the idea would work, but that they weren't the right team to do it. That they're not a team that specializes in like narrative games, and they came up with a cool idea, which is like a very narrative-driven game. And they concluded that yes, this idea has legs, and the idea is promising, but they're not the right team to do it. So that was really cool, and I enjoyed the talk. Had a lot of stuff about, of course, there's stuff about how it had gone well for them, and of course he wouldn't be giving the talk if they hadn't figured out how to do it well. But he had quite a lot of examples of like, okay, this is where you wasted 6 hours building a physics simulation for seeds to fall into the hamster cage and kind of flow in a natural way, and you realize, oh, you should just drop them from the top. It's fine. It's just a prototype. So yeah, that was very interesting. And there was also a talk on tile maps that had a bit of this. Jackie Coates, who's a YouTuber who presented that talk, she presented loads and loads of different like little examples of things she's made. She says she makes she tries rebuilding a simple version of someone else's game to try and figure out how you would do it. And so she sort of built a blueprints like game and showed a cool way that you could do that with each room is made up of tiles, but then each room is also itself a tile. So you have a tile map that is made up of smaller tile maps, which is really cool. That was quite a good whistle stop tour of like techniques for quickly making something work and like cool tricks to use the functionality that's already built in versus having to build your own, which seems to that's one of the recurring features. Like do something simple using what you have, and it's normally good enough. And if it isn't, you can come back to it and improve it.
So one of the questions that I have there, probably because my background is marketing. I worked with games before, but like not building the game. So in my where I'm going with my question is about the prototyping, because Threadbare is open source. So I don't know how much that changes the prototyping of a feature versus one of these games that's more like, I don't want to say secret, but it's more like the way that you go and launch it and prototype it, or get feedback from users can be different. I don't know if it matters or not.
Well, in some ways, it's easier to get quick feedback because the game being open source. As we spoke in our talk about how the game being open source is sort of further down a continuum. But if you've got an open source game, then you've by definition got a game that can be a game that's being developed in the open. Then, as well as contributing to it, people can also play it much earlier in the process. And so in Threadbare, we have this quite nice build system where if you open a draft pull request for the game, you get a generated build where you can test that version of the game in your browser. And so that's been pretty nice for playtesting because I can prototype something, I can just push the branch, I label it as a work in progress, and then I can put it on our Discord or share it within Endless Access, and people can give quick feedback on that. And so I think that's worked pretty well for us. I think we're going to keep doing that.
Wonderful. That's actually, I'm going to use that as a call to action. But when we share this video on Discord, definitely for people, to go and check out like all the branches on like our Git library just to see what's happening there. And if you have any feedback, drop it in the channel.
Drop it on Discord, or we have on the discussions section in GitHub, we have a category for playtesting feedback. So I mean, feedback is always welcome, either on like stuff which is in the main development branch, or on we publish like snapshots of the game every few weeks, but also with like work in progress branches. I mean, the more work in progress something is, the more likely it is to be like not a polished thing. So kind of bear that in mind. If it's the level doesn't seem very well designed, like, well, maybe we're not prototyping that in that particular prototype. But like, I mean, all feedback is useful. So
wonderful.
Please come and take a look at what's going on.
Absolutely. So last question, it would be around the presentation. Kind of in a way, now that you went and presented, is there something that you have changed from the presentation? Are you like after watching all these talks and what was there, would you have tweaked anything about it?
Well, I wish we had a little bit longer. Actually, we decided to ask for a shorter slot. And in a way that's good, because if you have a short slot, it really forces you to focus on what you want to say. So I think the talk was better for it. We spent quite a lot of time paring it down, and in the end it fitted pretty much exactly into 20 minutes, which is what we were aiming for. I think if we'd had a little more time, we could have talked more about about more concrete examples of things that people have made in the game, and like what worked well and what we would change. I mean, so this is answering your question with the same thing. I think it would have been interesting to talk more about concrete sort of things that went well, more examples of the kinds of things people are creating, and also kind of zoom back out a bit more and talk more about the broader impact of the work we're doing. But I think, I mean, I guess this is a question of people who watch the talk, really. If people go and watch the talk and there's things you wish we talked more about or less about, then that would be great to hear.
Like I am probably, that's a to-do for me. Post it, ask for feedback, and then I can share that with you. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. It was a really nice chat, and we will talk again soon.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Thanks.